Harper did and leave to go to New York because I'm fed up with Alabama. He has to learn to live with the reality of his circumstances. Nell does not have to live with the reality of her circumstances because she's living in New York, where she can believe and do anything she wants. So it is when she comes back and confronts her father about why do you accommodate yourself to this racism? And the simple answer to that is because, Nell, I educated you as a Christian and a human being to be better than this and to find your place. If you can't accommodate yourself to Alabama and learn to live here, then you need to go to New York. And I helped prepare you to be able to do that. But I have to live in Monroeville. And I think when we get through with what we've done with To Kill a Mockingbird, which is say this is all about race in 1932, and we understand if it had been about race in Alabama in 1932, we wouldn't have 50 million people reading this book. But what happened to that book is the reason that people in Russia read it, the reason people in China read it, the reason people in South Korea read it, and that is the meaning of To Kill a Mockingbird is you shouldn't judge another human being, not even Robert E. Lee Ewell, until you have walked in his shoes, understood life through his eyes, and only then do you have the right to say, I can judge him. In the case of Go Set a Watchman, 50 years from now, it won't be about 1956 in Alabama when Jean Louise comes back to confront Atticus. 50 years from now, it'll be about a generation of self-righteous young people who have left their home in Alabama or their home in Kansas, and they've gone to the Big Apple, or they've gone to Los Angeles, or they've gone to Seattle. And they've gone home to be with their parents and said, how can you believe what you believe about gay people, about black people, about immigrants, about illegal immigrants? How can you believe that? And the father will say, I never left to go to San Francisco. And everybody here in Kansas believes that illegal immigrants ought to be sent back to Mexico. And it's that generational tension between the young who feel at first their fathers can do no wrong, and then recognize suddenly in this eureka moment, my father has done a lot wrong. He has accommodated himself to all the prejudices of this little town in Kansas. And then a knowing father saying, if only you could understand how complicated life is, that it's a lot more complicated than you think it is. At which point, as happens in Go Set a Watchman, the daughter says, I can never live in Monroeville. I can never marry Henry Clinton. I'm going back to New York City, but now I understand why you do what you do. Not that I agree with you, but I can understand what you do. And the father says, and all my life, I tried to raise a daughter who was smart enough to decide either she had to accommodate herself to Monroeville or she had to move to New York City. And I'm so proud of you for living in New York City and being who you are. I think that is a great, great story.
And I think it's a great story too. As a matter of fact, after talking with Dr. Flint about it, I plan to read the book. It's something I was not going to do because I frankly did not understand. I had heard so many things. And Dr. Flint, who is a brilliant man, a professor. He was a professor at Auburn for many years. I'm not sure if he's completely retired now or not, but renowned, nationally, internationally renowned professor of history. So that was a great pleasure for me to get to introduce and interview Dr. Wayne Flint. We've got Sylacauga's Citizen of the Year coming up. I want to remind you that the next Brown Bag series, before we get to that interview, is going to be this coming Wednesday, and it will, of course, be at the usual time. It will feature former Alabama Governor John Patterson. His friend Warren Trest will be there as well to talk about the Battle of El Guitar, which was a major battle in World War II. We'll have more on that next week. We've got to go to break because we've got a lot more to come here on Coosa Valley Magazine.
At Toyota of Sylacauga, we're capping off our record-breaking year with our record-breaking discounts. This is the sale you've been waiting for.
Get huge Toyota of Sylacauga discounts. Up to $4,000 off on Corolla. Up to $4,500 off on Sienna. Up to $5,500 off on Prius. And up to $7,000 off on your choice of Avalon or Camry.
Online 24/7 at toyotaofsylacauga.com. Get ready to smile.
Camping World would like to introduce you to a whole new world. Say hello to a fresh day. Step out to adventure. Explore and discover an amazing world. Be in arm's reach of wonderful. Camping World, the #1 RV and camping expert, wants you to say hello to a whole new world.
Say hello to great deals during the RV sales event. Visit your local Camping World today.
In Central Alabama, 9,100 kids face going to bed hungry tonight. Hunger doesn't take a day off. There are kids right here, right now, that don't know where they'll get their next meal. Join Alabama Childhood Food Solutions and help put an end to childhood hunger in Central Alabama. Make a difference. Donate today, by mail or online, to help ACFS feed hungry kids. There's no better time to share than now. Their next meal could come from you.
Any meal, anytime, it's a Huddle House on Highway 280. From the popular Huddle House Signature Waffle to our Big House breakfast, including gravy and biscuit and loaded hash browns, it's a Huddle House. Try our Philly cheese steak omelet. It's a sure hit, too. Our Big House sandwich combos include Huddle Burger and Country Fried Steak. And for lunch or dinner, it's the often requested chopped steak with mushroom gravy. Starting to get hungry? Head to the Huddle House. Our friendly and experienced team await you. Huddle House, Highway 280, any meal, anytime.
And we are back here on Coosa Valley Magazine. Now, I would go into a long introduction, but this lady does not need a long introduction. Dear friend of mine for many, many years, the Citizen of the Year, Margaret Morton. Let's take a listen to what the director of SAFE had to say.
Margaret Morton, you received the Citizen of the Year Award from the Sylacauga Beautification Council, kind of like our Man of the Year Award that the movie that Robin Williams starred in years ago. And you're well known around town, but I wonder if folks really know a lot about you. Tell us, Margaret comes from an old family on both sides. Tell us about your background.
I'd be glad to, because I'm pretty proud of my parents and my family. My mother's family actually came here through the marble industry and were the executives. My grandfather Runge, William Runge, was Will, as he went by, was an executive with the Alabama Marble Company, and they lived out at Gant's Quarry. And my grandmother my grandfather came from New York, and my grandmother came from Georgetown, and they actually met through my great uncle, who was Mitchell King, who was with the Alabama Marble Company. My father and mother met at the University of Alabama, and my father got to the University of Alabama. His dad had been, my grandfather had been a professor at the law school, and my father grew up in Audubon Place in Tuscaloosa. And so they met in Tuscaloosa and married, and then my daddy went into the service, and then after he came back from the service, they went back to Tuscaloosa, and he got his law degree and moved to Sylacauga, Alabama, actually out to Gant's Quarry, and lived for a period of time until they built a house on Spring Drive, not too far, Jim Green, from where you grew up, on Spring Drive, and that is where I was born and raised and spent my childhood with a lot of folks that people would recognize in this community who also grew up in Sylacauga. Went to Main Avenue School, Pinecrest School, graduated from Sylacauga High School, and then went myself on to the University of Alabama and got my BS, my master's, and my EDS from the University of Alabama in education, and that's where I met my husband, Joe, and while he was working on his doctorate. So.
And you guys went on from there. Joe escalated in his profession, eventually becoming the state superintendent of education. And you were a special ed teacher, if memory serves.
I was. I started actually in elementary ed, and then when I got my master's in special ed, and then my EDS in learning disabilities. I have sort of been a jack of all trades and basically a master of none, but I have taught at the elementary level. I have taught special ed. I've taught at the college level. I've served as an adjunct faculty member. I've supervised student teachers, and I have been a school psychometrist. I did a lot of that work when Joe and I moved here.
Tell us what a psychometrist is. That's a person who... I
did all the assessments for special ed services, for the gifted, diagnostic testing, that sort of thing. And and I was a school psychometrist in Sylacauga from 1978 to around the early 1990s, and had an opportunity to go back to school and be certified in elementary guidance and counseling, and took that opportunity, and then spent some of the best years of my career at Indian Valley Elementary School as the elementary guidance counselor. Until in 1998, unbeknownst to any career goals I had, I became the interim executive director here at SAFE, with the idea that it would be a transitional position. And I guess the rest is history, because I have been in this position since 1998. I have served as both the guidance counselor and the executive director for a period of time, and an employee of the Sylacauga City Schools up until about 5 years ago, when I retired from education, but continued on as the director here at SAFE.
Margaret, let me ask you, growing up, who were your role models? Who were the people that kind of pointed you in this direction?
Well, I'd have to say first and foremost would be my parents. My mother grew up in a generation where women did not work, but that didn't mean that she wasn't actively involved in the community. And certainly my dad was an attorney. And the interesting part of this recent honor that I have very humbly been awarded was that my daddy was Man of the Year for the city of Sylacauga years ago, Kiwanis Man of the Year. And so when I heard my name called out the other night, it was sort of, I felt sort of that thump of my heart, because my dad, not that I in any way measure up to what the person that he was, but he was very much involved in this community in every single way, and he was very much involved in my life and in the life of my brother. There wasn't an event in the community, there wasn't an activity that we were involved in that my parents were not a part of. My mother through the PTA, my grandmother through the library, on and on. So I really had, as a child, an opportunity, if I didn't get it right, it was my fault, because I had lots of people that served as my mentor and an example of how you live your life. I grew up in a neighborhood on Spring Drive, as General Colin Powell says, where everybody knows your name. And literally, I had parents up and down that street. We all did. From the Runges to the Yates to the Perrimans to the Easterlings to the Porches, the Roberts. I mean, there were parents up and down that street that were nurturing us as children. We played together all day, every day, from sunup till sundown, except when we were in school. And it was such a nurturing neighborhood and environment. And I think that's what has given me a love for wanting to strengthen and support families, to create those opportunities for children and families to have those nurturing opportunities. And neighborhoods and lives have changed over the course of time for a lot of reasons, and it's not always a bad thing, but we want to be sure that we we provide as a community, as a city, as a county, and as a state and as a nation, opportunities for families to flourish. We can't flourish for them, but to have those opportunities there. And so I think my life as a child was